Good afternoon. Welcome to C&T Collectibles. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today we're going to do our This Week in Baseball charts. This is where we look at the price action of some of our favorite collectibles. The price action will tell you what is happening, while fundamentals will tell you what should be happening. So I think it's important to be aware of both as they are intertwined. We've got a number of cards today, and we a lot of work to do. So let's just kind of jump right into it. And we start off, as always, with Mike Trout, one of the most important cards in the baseball hobby, and the long-term uptrend is intact. We were looking at kind of the 2014 scenario here, where he hit the top of the range, bottom of the range, trended up, and then retested kind of that breakout. For this scenario here, we're at the top of the range, bottom of the range, and it looks like he's failing at the retest here. It looked like an interesting spot to buy, and I still think that it is. But it's leaking below this line just a little bit here, and this isn't perfect by any stretch, but it's really close to a bottom of a long-term range here. So we'll see if it maybe tags that, but that puts it at a $3,000 area, which may be a problem for one of the Trout cards here. We'll look in a minute here, but you can see that the momentum overall has been fairly steady. You've had some upswings. This just goes back a year, so really back to this point here. Not to scale, I apologize about that one. Took too much time to kind of figure that out and to filter everything out and go back this far. Would have been a heck of a spreadsheet here. But anyways, it tracks the momentum of this one. You can see that the narrowest of this bands tells you that the cards are in kind of a controlled up and down trend. So these are percentage moves, so not insignificant by any stretch. $3,000 to $2,000. That's a 33% up and down move, but I think we're used to that. So there's a lot of buying in here, and you can see it return to that buying level. But if it gets to $3,000, what you're going to see with the PSA 9 trading at $2,000, so $4,500 for the PSA 10, a little over $2,000 for the PSA 9. Those PSA 9 buyers could start to step up and say, you know what the heck with the PSA 9, I'm just going to buy the 10 here. So momentum is rolling over. So this was a very exaggerated move. You don't need a momentum indicator to tell you that. But this has been a fairly steady decline here, and we are getting a sell signal here. So we'll see how controlled it is. But again, if you look at the PSA 9, it's held up relatively well. So again, you had the spike up to $2,500, but it's hovering around the $2,000 area here, and so that's a little bit of a drop here, 20%. So not a little bit, but that's a decent drop. But not what the PSA 10 has had here, and the momentum is actually accelerating a little bit here. It looks good. So an exaggerated move up. But it is continuing to trend upwards here. So you could see these prices continue to rise. And where that gets interesting is if this thing gets up to $2,200, $2,300, and if that Trout card, the PSA 10 comes back down to that $3,000 area, you're going to see all the buying here just get abandoned. I mean, why would you pay an extra, couple $100 or $1,000, to get a PSA 10 for the long term here? So this disconnect is going to resolve itself one way or another. I'm not sure how, but it's really kind of persisting here, and that 9 continues to gather strength. So I gotta believe people are going to come in and buy that 10 at some point here in the near future. But who knows? Who knows? But I think we're getting close here. But this will resolve one way or another, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So sorry for that. All right, Luis Robert is boring, so we're going to go with Alex Rodriguez for their R this week in the Mr. Beast Index. So downtrend here. This is the longer term. No, back a couple of years, so not too long term here. So you had a nice consolidation. Here's your support, and here's your resistance, and it broke out, and you had no chance to buy this because one person decided that $50 was not the proper price. $200 was the price, and he's quickly overwhelmed by all the people down here saying, yeah, okay, I'll sold to you here. So those prices are trending back down, and we'll see if they can't get back into this $75 to $100 area here. But the trend is down on A-Rod, so a lot of excitement over. I don't know what the excitement was. This was just like a month and a half ago. So excitement of cards in general or something like that. I don't think he's going to do much in baseball this year. And Hall of Fame voting, I think, they were looking at him maybe getting in, and they were wrong. So maybe that's probably what it was. And those prices are going to return to a level where there's more sustainable buying. All right, Mookie Betts, and this is his Chrome, his 2014 Chrome. The PSA 10 is going to cost you $650. The PSA 9 is going to be $170. So right off the bat, there's a disconnect between the 10 and the 9. The 10 is rolling over just a little bit here. You've got a pretty well-defined uptrend going back a little over a year. Top of the range coming off a little bit here, and starting to compress a little bit. So we'll see what happens. A good season, shoots this card up just a little bit here with his regular flagship. hovering around $800, and the Chrome version of that much more than that. So people are kind of looking for this one. So did a mail day a couple weeks ago where I got one of these, and it was a raw version, but I think you can still get those for $40. And the Chromes are nice because those are probably going to grade fairly decently. So I still think that's a pretty nice opportunity in this card here. So again, quick move up here, and it's starting to consolidate. And if the flagship is out of your price range here, and I think the PSA 9s are actually $300 or whatever, but if you want a Chrome version of something Mookie, the raw or the 9 I think are really excellent opportunities at this present time here. All right, Eloy Jimenez. We've got a pretty well-defined range here. Here's your bottom, here's your top. So you went from the bottom, went to the top, to the bottom, to the top, coming off again here. So I like Eloy a lot. You had this downtrend compression and said, look for a move out of this one, and we got it very quickly. That's the problem when you're only trading a few cards a day rather than a few million shares of something. It moves really, really fast, and you're probably not going to catch these moves. So again, this is why it's mostly for fun, because good luck catching these moves with data that's a day late and thinly traded. So anyways, you're coming back into an area where I think it's pretty fairly valued. Actually, I think it's probably undervalued for what Eloy has been doing and what I believe he will do in the future here with a lot of these youngsters, including his center field teammate, trading near $100 or more. I think there's very little reason for Eloy to be trading in this area here. So this is a pretty interesting area here. See if it can hold on. If it can't hold on to this, then you move further down to $40, $50, and that's a screaming buy. I think I'd probably grab more at that point. Again, I'm not telling you what to do, but for me, I kind of have what I want here. But if it keeps going lower, then I'll be forced to have doubles, and I'll put them away for the boys. All right, Ronald Acuna, his flagship continues to kind of grind sideways a little bit here. So let's look at some of his fun stuff here. And I like the X Fractors. I like this one a lot. The PSA 10 is trading for a pretty hefty price here. Not a lot of buyers, and so it's worthless to chart this one. But again, we're just trying to have some fun here. So uptrend, breakout, retest of that one, and I don't know how many people step in to buy this card at $1,200 in the PSA 10. I think the 9, $1,230. I don't know what the 9 goes for. I don't really care. I have the 9. I do care a little bit, but at this point, I'm just gonna kind of hang on to it. But it's gonna have to return to an area where there's more buying. Unfortunately, that's way down here. I don't think it gets that far. But if it perhaps comes into here, so we'll see. Again, one person with $1,500 to spare can push it right back up, or someone says, geez, I could sure use $1,000, could push it back down again. So, but a lot of those parallels. The point is, those Chromes, X Fractors tend to do very, very well relative to their paper flagship base cards. All right, Juan uptrend is well defined, even short term, long term. He had the breakout here and said, maybe there's going to be some profits taking, and there was, but people quickly stepped in and pushed his prices way up. And so when you're looking at cards that are consolidating and breaking out, there's a few mathematical things you can do to predict the price movement to a relative extent here. So Fibonacci is one. So if you look at extensions on these, you just kind of go from the top to the bottom, and a couple of the Fibonacci numbers, 150% is not a Fibonacci number, but it's a pretty common number, but 161.8% is. So right in that range, and $380 is kind of the extension on that one. So this hit it good enough, and then come back, and so we'll see what happens. That was kind of your top, and then if it comes back into this range here, which it has, then I think you see some more buying come back into play here. Eventually, if he just does what he's been doing over the past couple of years and has a MVP level season, then I think you could see it's kind of interesting, this number here, which is why I keep saying $450 eventually. 200% extension, again, not Fibonacci, but it's a round number that people like, but also the top to the bottom of the range. Here's $150 added to this to $450. So momentum is relatively flat on this one here. So there's not going to be an exaggerated move one way or another as it stands right now. So the downs should be, you could see more downside, but should be relatively controlled. But unless there's a bunch of people just bidding the crap out of this thing, you're not going to see that big spike upward. So fairly muted moves overall. A lot of buying in here to kind of keep this one steady. So you can see over the past 3 months here that the PSA 9s, which I favored if you use that 3-to-1 ratio that that a lot of people like, it's held up pretty well here. So when this was 180 or something dollars, and his nines were selling for 40 or 50 bucks. It's really caught up, and the nines have outperformed. So the nines and the chromes have done their job against the flagship. So it's not all about the PSA 10. Sometimes you got to look at those ratios as well. So you can see that the nines are hanging in fairly well relative to the 10 downtrending, and this one is doing all right here. So Fernando Tatis signed a big contract, and you can only do that once. Maybe another 14 years you'll see a spike like this when he signs another deal. Who knows? Gave it back pretty quickly. That was kind of obvious. So when you have these big moves here, so call it the top of the range. But more importantly, here's his all-time high, and you went above it, and now you're going to come back in it. A lot of buying in this area here, so you're probably getting close to Tatis. But when you see these low volume moves, just let it go. One of the important things that you can look at are, again, the momentum indicators that show, yeah, this is a strong buy signal. This goes back to February, so right in here. And you should be buying in this area anyways, I think, for the most part, or should have. But when you have this momentum up, and then you start to put in new highs again on declining momentum, so you put it in this one, and then this new high was on declining momentum, that's a divergence and kind of a warning sign that you could see a pullback again, and that's what we got. So again, I think you're kind of in no man's land, a little bit closer to a buy than anything else. And if he has a really good season, then you could revisit those highs. But for now, not much to do except just be a little bit patient. His Chrome update card is done pretty well. So again, those Chromes, but the update one's kind of weird. No one likes update, but started off as life into consolidation, a breakout, pretty decent uptrend here. Now you're consolidating again. So we'll see what happens below this line. Then you kind of return to this area here. So you have your downside of 70 bucks and your upside of $270. So somewhere in the midpoint of those two numbers, call it $100, should put it in that $170 area, and so that's right in here. So if this breaks, then I think you see buyer step up kind of in this area. But for now, the trend is up. But I'm not doing anything with that one here. And even if it gets to there, I'm not spending 150, 160 bucks on a Chrome update. So I've got a raw one, good enough. We'll call it a day on that. So all right, we'll move out of our Mr. Beast index into a couple names that I like. We did second baseman, top 5 second baseman for the week here, and my favorite guy is Ozzie Albies. So there, I just saved you 8 minutes. You don't have to go watch that now. Number 1, Ozzie Albies. So struggling at this $75 area here. And but getting a lot of buying in this area here, so those prices are starting to compress a little bit, so a little too much too fast perhaps, but I don't think it pulls back a whole lot. And if he starts to solidify himself as a 24-year-old with a handful of WAR and a pretty attractive Hall of Fame path, this price should probably rise. This is the Chrome, and you can get it right now for 65 bucks or something like that. So I think that's a pretty good value. Again, people are spending multiples of that for guys that aren't doing what he's doing here. So momentum looks good, and again, any small pullback is a buying opportunity for the high there. Raw cards you can get for $4 or $5 still, and those have I think they have a pretty high gem rate. I mean, someone knows better. I'm sure most of you know that better than me, but having never sent anything in to be graded, whenever I say, whenever I start talking about grading stuff, don't listen to me, all right? I can see what the price action is doing. When I start talking about cards and what they should grade, I've never graded. I don't know, so don't listen to me on that kind of stuff. I'll still talk about it, but know that you can just disregard that and save yourself some time. So, all right, older baseball players, former baseball players, and they're older too, I guess. So, Ricky Henderson going back a couple of years, because this was really just sideways back to 2004. So zoom in just a little bit here. We've got a nice uptrend and just this monster spike, and the people have been paying attention for a while say you don't mess with those. Only a few people believe that's the price, and a lot of people believe this is the price, and they'll be happily selling to those. And if you have one person that says I believe this is 4 or 5 people say yeah, sure, I'm willing to pay $5,000 for this. You have a lot of people down here saying and 10 people say I'll sell to you at that price. Take my money and run. They get overwhelmed quickly, and those prices return to a level here. And so you're kind of seeing that. So momentum, again, exaggerated, which means too much too fast. Be careful. It is on a sell signal as of February. So right in here, I mean, you should have been involved anyways. But you're starting to consolidate a little bit, and you're seeing momentum pick up just a tiny bit here. So we'll see what happens on this one here. So maybe it moves back to this area where there's been a lot of buying, or maybe it starts to find its footing in here. It would be interesting to watch, but Ricky Henderson sure has a lot of interest, and probably he hasn't done anything for a while baseball wise, so I don't know that he's maintaining his interest now. I don't know that it changes anytime soon. So Donnie Baseball, bottom of the range, top of the range, not bad for a guy who's not in the Hall of Fame. Maybe he should, maybe he shouldn't. Maybe people are looking for that Veterans Committee type stuff. Who knows? But as of now, not in. Big spike up here, and you just leave that alone. Gets quickly overwhelmed by people willing to sell, and now you're back into this area here. So trendline support, but I don't know that holds overall. I think there's plenty of buying in here. So even if it drops back down a little bit, people will probably swoop in. A couple $100 for a nice example of an iconic '80s card. Probably not as much downside as maybe some longer term upside. So yeah, I would disregard this as the high, but there's decent enough buying here. So you've got upside to that $350 area and downside into that $250-$200 area. So not much to do right now. Again, the aggressive person would buy right here, but I think that this is probably a more likely spot. But what do I know? We shall see. So. All right, got a couple hockey names here. Went through my old collection. We were talking on Anonymous's stream last week, and Gretzky came up. It's like, oh, I missed my hockey cards. Let's dig them out here. So, the Russian Rocket Pavel Bure dominated in NHL '94. He just carried the Canucks by himself pretty much. So, you have this pretty nice uptrend going back to 2004. Here's top of the range, bottom of the range, and these prices are compressing. And unfortunately, what this usually means is it resolves itself to the downside at some point. And this would not be an insignificant move sitting right at right now. So $200 for PSA 10 of a Hall of Famer and one of the top 100 players of hockey all time. So if hockey is doing anything here, and those high-end guys are, but if the rest of the sport catches up, I mean, that's a nice price. I mean, you can buy young guns right now of players, and you can't get them for $200. And so you can get a Pavel Bure for $200. So, I'm gonna spit all over myself here. I'm so excited about Pavel Bure. All right. So, anyways, unfortunately, this resolve itself to the downside. So, unless it can bust up, but it can still travel within this. But again, it's going to compress too much. So, at some point, if it comes back down to maybe $90, and that's a 50% move down, so not insignificant. But we'll see. Right now the trend is up and is right around his all-time high. So that's a pretty powerful card in this market where we're seeing things get chopped in half or 30, 40, 50%. He's hanging around all-time highs. That says something there. So Pavel Bure, all right, the great one. And this is alphabetical order. That's why he's not number one, but otherwise he would have been. Nice uptrend here, but accelerated to the upside a little too much too fast. And so now he's coming off a little bit, and it would be healthy to, when you break out of these ranges, you want to see a retest of that, and then you can travel upwards here. But his high price was around $12,000, and right now he's sitting around $8,500. So that's not an insignificant move. And I think there's, right in the middle of the range here, probably nothing you can do here. There's probably a little bit more downside. But even if it comes back into this area here, you're talking, $5,000 or $6,000. The thing's getting cut in half or more. So, nice run, got a lot of headlines, but for now, it's like, just okay, you missed it. Just maybe leave it unless a lot of people start stepping in to buy this thing, which I don't know. A lot of people did here. Not a lot of people are doing it there. So, Mario Lemieux. NHL '94, man. Lemieux and Yager were unstoppable. It was almost unfair. Less Roenick, but my sneaky play was always Buffalo Sabres with Alexander McGillney. I'd whip you with that one. Move him to the center or the left wing, so on a penalty, he wouldn't get taken off the ice, and I'll put up a bunch of goals on you. So steady rise here, accelerated rise here, and then again top of the range coming off a little bit and finding some support in this area here. But again, the momentum, a very exaggerated move. The momentum is crossing over, so to see some more downside wouldn't surprise me. And again, something in here where there's a lot of buying would make some sense. So this is kind of up on an island here, and there was no buying in this area. Right here, you had to buy here and buy here, but nothing here. And so the market may have to come back down into that area. And again, not an insignificant move. This high price is just over $4,000, and coming back down to worst case, not worst case, but I mean, what could happen if it comes back down to like $800 or something? That is that's a big deal. So wiping out 75% of your gains, that's kind of crazy, and it's already pretty aggressive here. So Lemieux, I don't think so. I'd rather see momentum start to pick back up just a little bit here. Stevie Y, this is the O-Pee-Chee PSA 10 sitting around $5,200, making new highs. Can't argue with that one. But again, downtrend, here's your breakout, and gosh, I mean, there's some buying in here, but not a lot right here. So no go, do not touch. I don't know how they say that in Canadian here, but I wouldn't do much of anything right here, but this is kind of an interesting area. But again, you still have this whole area here where there wasn't a lot of buying. So if it can't hold into here, I mean, you're really coming back down to that $900 area. So we'll see what happens. Who knows? Who knows? But it's making new highs right now. So maybe someone comes in and says, 5,000, I'll spend 7. I don't know. So, but it's getting thin. There's thin up there. All right, a couple basketball. We'll just finish this up here. John Morant, and this is what I'm seeing in basketball cards, kind of across the board. Is you had a lot of buying here, and then this huge acceleration on low volume, and they're coming off, and people are buying on the way down, but not as much as they were here, and then they come back to this area of accumulation. So looked at Luka last week, and Ja's doing kind of the same thing here. So you've really got this area, and here it is again. So it seems like an interesting spot for basketball to start to pick up once again with the playoffs and all that kind of stuff going. That picture kind of sorting itself out just a little bit. There's certain players that'll probably do better than others. I was a season ticket holder for the Wolves for like 15 years, and honestly, I'm just, it's like eating McDonald's every day for a long time. You're just kind of sick of it. So I don't follow this nearly as what I should. But I hear this name a lot. So here he is, back in an area where, in Luka, back in an area where there was decent buying. And here's more my era. And so this is the one of the more iconic cards with Bird and Johnson, and it just, those were good times. That was basketball. But you have a quick move here on a lot of low volume, but pretty decent buying here, but it couldn't hang on, and so it's coming back down again here. This is the PSA 8 of that card, so a lot of buying in this area, but the trend is down here. People are trying to kind of kick save it just a little bit here. So we'll see what happens, but again, not an insignificant move. Someone spent $20,000 on this card recently, and now you're cut in half pretty quick. And so again, you stay away from these low volume moves because they get overwhelmed with selling, and they did. And the trend is down on that one, so careful, I guess. So all right, taking up enough of your time. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate this is one of our videos that seems to do a little bit better. So if you do like it, if there's cards you want me to look at, just go ahead and leave it in the comments. And all I ask is my son Tommy's really excited about doing his favorite car video, and if you wouldn't mind just checking that out when we put it up this weekend. He's putting a lot of work into it, and I'm excited for him here. So all right, have a great rest of the week. Pencils down, beers up. Well, it's only lunchtime, so don't do that just yet, but got to do your homework, and hopefully I've helped you out a little bit. Have a great weekend. Bye now.